In today's edition of Top Talk, we will discuss the growing role that Italy is playing in Azerbaijan. We have invited Daniel Pommier Vincelli, one of the Italian top experts of Caucasian issues. Mr. Pommier is a professor at La Sapienza University of Rome. His main research area includes the post-Soviet democratization processes, with a focus on Azerbaijan. He has issued several publications on Azerbaijan, including Azerbaijan in Italian military documents of 1919-1920. Today, he will answer some questions on the Italian-Azerbaijani relations. So, Mr. Pommier, you are one of the 15 foreign experts who attended the Italian conference, New Vision for South Caucasus, Post-Conflict Development and Cooperation. Among the topics covered in the conference, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev has commented on the status and the future of the bilateral relations of Italy and Azerbaijan. Could you provide more insights about what has been discussed?
Okay, thank you, Simona. First of all, let me thank you for this kind invitation. I feel, let me say in advance that I feel honored of being interviewed by your center for a simple reason. Sorry, because as you already mentioned, I studied the Azerbaijan Democratic Republic in 1918-1920. So I devoted a book in Italian, International History of Azerbaijan, Storia Internazionale dell'Azerbaijan, the relation with the Western world. So one of the heroes of my story, of what I try to tell through documents, through the archival research, is Ali Mardambey Topchubashov or Topchubashov. So Topchubashov was the hero of my book, was the chairman of the Azerbaijani parliament, and then of this eternal mission, to mention a famous documentary about the story of this eternal diplomatic mission, which struggled to get the full recognition of the Azerbaijani democracy in 1920. So now, 2 years after I published this book, I feel honored being interviewed by a center devoted to this outstanding figure, outstanding character, embodying the best of the relation between the East and the West. So this is a preliminary remark. And as for the April meeting with His Excellency President Ilham Aliyev, there was a conference, an event organized by the Azerbaijani Diplomatic Academy, which is a very advanced and sophisticated educational institution, a very young university, I guess, which was founded 2003, 2004, but now is this university, ADA, is climbing up the ranks and the classifies of the university, of the research institutions. So ADA has developed a wide range of relations with scholars studying Caucasus geopolitics, history, and society worldwide. So this meeting was organized through the Azerbaijani Diplomatic Academy connections, scientific connections built in these years. It was outstanding. The audience was outstanding. The best of the Caucasus scholars were attending. People much more known than me. So scholars like Brandon Schaffner, like Svante Cornell, like John Forsyth. So people who that worldwide take the lead in Caucasus studies, especially in contemporary history, sociology, and geopolitics. So I praised the rationale behind this meeting because I had the impression that the government of Azerbaijan wanted to express its point of view towards non-biased scholars, towards what are the best minds, the brightest minds in Western university, research centers, research institutions, public institutions, etc., etc. So these best minds were summoned, and the president of Azerbaijan expressed the Azerbaijani point of view 1 year, 10 months after the 10 months after the end of the war, Sorry. So it was very, very interesting meeting because we, as scholars, we were excited. No other words are acceptable. We were quite excited of having the opportunity to engage the president firsthand. After we studied this region for years, after we have been researching, we have been interviewed about the Second Karabakh War, the 44 Days War. So it was a really great opportunity for us. So it was a very open mind meeting because no questions and no questions were submitted in advance. So Aliyev gave us a speech about the priorities of the reconstruction in Karabakh and the opportunities and challenges of the Azerbaijani foreign policy. And then we put our questions freely. So was a very, I think very, Azerbaijan government, Azerbaijan regime, as to say, is often criticized by international observers, critics, journalists, other scholars. But I am I'm used to practical things. I'm used to pragmatism. And I have to say that very few leaders are so open-minded and open to intellectual challenges from the elite of the scholarly world of Caucasus, as President Aliyev did during this meeting. So I'm not sure that even people I admire, like Joe Biden or Mario Draghi or Emmanuel Macron or Boris Johnson, will be comfortable being submitted before an audience of international scholars in a different language as President Aliyev did. So what President Aliyev said is known. No secrets were revealed. As far as I am concerned, I'm very interested in the challenges of reconstruction. One of my topics of interest is the fate of the IDP people. So Azerbaijan has one of the highest percent per capita of IDPs worldwide. Now the phenomenon of IDPs has doubled, more than doubled in the world. There are 2 IDPs for entry. So I'm very interested in understanding how the IDPs will get the opportunity to get back to their places, to the place where they were displaced. So President Aliyev was very adamant and sincere. Told us that it would take time, maybe 5 years, because there is a mining problem, an infrastructural problem, an hydric problem, electricity, energy, connection. So all the problems we know. But the problem I guess in the second question is what will happen in 5 years from now? There will be a political space for mediation and for enforcing the efforts to bring IDPs home. So this is the main point, the main question point. As for Italy is concerned, yes, quasi ally, almost ally is a good definition. Of course, Italy officially was neutral during the 44 Days War, was attached to the principle of international mediation, peaceful resolution of conflicts, so to both the principle of self-determination and territorial integrity, but I saw a benevolent neutrality towards Azerbaijan. Because Italy is the main partner of Azerbaijan in Western Europe, has become the main partner of Azerbaijan in Western Europe, and Italy knows it and keeps these good relations are maintained warm on both sides. So during the war, Italy, I will not say was leaning towards Azerbaijan, but looked at Azerbaijan reasons in a benevolent way, even though there were a lot of pressure towards Armenia and Italy too. Because we have a small, as compared to France or England, but I don't like using the term lobby because it's derogatory. We have a sphere of influence pro-Armenian in Italy too, in some social environment, cultural environment, in some cities, some academic circles. So there were pressures toward from Armenian spheres of influence. But the stance of the Italian government was definitely pro-Azerbaijan, and that was showed right after the war. So the support for Azerbaijan now is wide, a wide consensus, and even political forces who were initially anti-Azerbaijan or hostile critics towards Azerbaijan, like the Five Star Movement, now are definitely supporting Azerbaijani reasons. You know, at the beginning, Five Star Movement, which was an anti-system party in Italy, was against the TAP. So this opposition to the TAP was widened to Azerbaijan, because from Azerbaijan Azerbaijan was the source of this gas pipeline. But after 2018, everything, when five-star movements went to government, everything changed, and now is one of the most staunch supporters. Azerbaijan is a parliamentary committee of friendship, association of friendship, and the vice president is etc. So things have changed in the Italian parliament, and all the parties, more or less, but I'd say more than less, are positive and support the Azerbaijani reasons as for Nagorno-Karabakh is concerned.
Thank you so much for the answer. And as you mentioned, the relations between Italy and Azerbaijan go well beyond the strong economic ties that notoriously connect the two countries. Indeed, Rome has positioned itself as West's main political interlocutor for Baku. And in the aftermath of the Second Karabakh War, Italy has been defined by President Aliyev as an almost ally, and the Italian attitude in the region as repeatedly considered well-balanced and constructive. So do you expect the bilateral relations to further reinforce in the near future?
Yes, I expect that. Relations between Italy and Azerbaijan date back well before Italy and Azerbaijan were nation states. I don't need to remind how a Roman inscription was found a few kilometers far from Baku. I don't need to mention how the oil from Azerbaijan was described by Marco Polo during his travel diaries, Il Milione. So the Safavid Empire, the Persian Empire, which was ruled by the Safavid dynasty, which was Azeri Turkic, so was one of the partners of the Republic of Venice in 16th and 17th century. Was one of the competitor and partners of the Venice Republic. So there were Venetian ambassadors to the Safavid court. So relations were ancient. In 1918, an Italian diplomatic envoy, a military man, a colonel, Colonel Melchiorre Gabba, was dispatched to Caucasus, to Southern Caucasus. His permanent seat was Tiflis, but he was used to travel throughout the three capitals of Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan during the period of the First Democratic Republic. When Topchubashov, your ideal founder, the inspirational figure, the inspirational character of your center was blocked in Istanbul by the British authorities, the Italian Prime Minister, Vittorio Emanuele Orlando and the Italian Foreign Minister Sidney Sonnino solicited the Italian commissioner in Istanbul, which will be a very important character, Carlos Sforza, to pressure the British authorities, the French and British authorities, to let the Azerbaijani go to Paris, participate in the Versailles Conference. So that it is a letter I found in the Italian archives. I guess one of the first Italian scholars to publish this letter, this dispatch from Sidney Sonnino to Carlo Sforza. Melchiorre Gabba was very moderate, was very balanced during the clashes about Karabakh, because you know in 1919, 1920 there were friction, clashes, sporadic fightings between Armenian and Azerbaijanis about Karabakh sovereignty. So there were pro-Armenian forces in the Italian government too, but the Colbert Gabba said clearly, he wrote clearly to always Carlo Sforza, that had become Minister of Foreign Affairs, that would be against the Italian interests supporting Armenians. So, and the Tatars, he used this term from Russia, the Azerbaijani had their own reasons in Karabakh. So this was history. As for the future, the present day and future, as you know, Italy, first and foremost, Italy is the largest buyer of Azerbaijani oil, one of the largest buyers of Azerbaijani oil. At least 1/3 of gasoline pumped into the Italian cars and plants is from Caspian Sea. So it counts 1/3 of the energy supply. Caspian oil counts up to 1/3 of the energy supply of Italy. Since we lost more or less Libya, so Azerbaijan and Libya is not likely to resume in next years. Azerbaijan has replaced Libya as being energy partner. Furthermore, there are economic relations in the other way. Italian companies investing in Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan is a buyer. Is a buyer. We are buyers of oil. Azerbaijan is a buyer of refined. Is a buyer of research and technology. Is a buyer of luxury and style. So what we Italians are good to do is let's say the mental added value, the ability of us Italians to refine a good sell concept or a very high advanced skill. So what we do with our architects, our engineers, our cars, our fashion, etc., etc. So what is the core of the Italian economy, the added value, being Italian. So we are being able to sell to Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan economy is happy to receive these goods, our selling as buyers. And then there is one more thing which unites the two countries. We are both, I'd say, regional powers. We are both very multilateral. We are both very with strong religious traditions, but very tolerant, very open-minded, very multicultural, no racist at all. Of course, we both have some problems, some issue, but in my opinion, the fact of being regional powers with a tendency to multilateralism and being pivotal in this multilateral game. This common framework helps to unite these two countries. And then there are also psychological reasons for which Italians and Azerbaijanis are very common psychological characteristics. We are both worms, we are both warm people, we are both very socializing people, we have similar capitals, we have a comparable lifestyle. So I think that we as Italians feel praised of being selected by Azerbaijan as main partners, and the Azerbaijani being flattered by being object of interest of such a great and important country like Italy. So there are many cultural, anthropological, psychological, sociological, economic reasons, geographical, so for which these two countries go hand in hand in the next period. As for the 44 days war, I would like to stress one concept that I'm trying to submit even to my colleagues, to research centers and to scientific meetings. One of the points of force, one of the assets of Azerbaijan during the 44 days war was stressing the concept of territorial nowadays, countries throughout Europe, but not only Europe, are shaken, are scared by the ghost of national disintegration. Do you remember when the Marxist sentence, the Marxist slogan, "A ghost is going through how Europe"? So Karl Marx referred to the ghost of communism, to the ghost of workers' uprising. Now the ghost which is terrorizing European Western governments, I'd say, not only Western, most of governments in the world, is the national fragmentation, is separatism. Because all the wars, 90% of wars occurred after 1989 are civil wars. So states can fall apart. Not only in Middle East, not only in the Arabic world, not only in the backward Africa, Black Africa, and even in advanced Western democratized Spain, or in the UK with Scots, or in the States with the English-speaking states. So the ghost of or in Russia, don't need to say where. So the ghost of a national fragmentation, of a national breakdown, and the rise of separatism, scares, terrorize governments. So Azerbaijan was able to stress out this concept of territorial integrity. We are fighting for our territorial integrity, for the state not being torn apart by separatism. It's very ironical that one of the most staunch supporter of the Armenian, Emmanuel Macron, in the same days where he criticized Azerbaijan and supported Armenia and blah, 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 and these heroic people of Artsakh, issued a law against Islamic separatism. Not Islamic terror, neither Islamic terror nor Islamic fanaticism, but Islamic separatism. So there is this ghost of separatism. So most of countries were supportive of Azerbaijan because Azerbaijan was able to extract this added value of territorial integrity and international law. What Pierre Bourdieu, a main sociologist, theorized the force of the law. Law is a field in which the construction itself of the law is able to add a social value, a cultural value, in which the participants believe. And so Azerbaijan was able to extract value from the force of international law and territorial, and the concept of territorial integrity. This was a main asset of Azerbaijan during the 44 Days War, and Italy believed in this.
Thank you so much. So one last question. The restoration of sovereignty over Karabakh and occupied territories, and especially of the city of Shusha, has resulted in a substantial change in the identity of Azerbaijan. And what was perceived as a national trauma is now turning into a national narrative of victory. In your perspective, what are the main post-war obstacles and opportunities for Baku?
Okay, so yeah, Shusha was the cornerstone of the 44 Days War. The war ended when Shusha was liberated. So this war was and is much more symbolic than real, than practical, even though had practical and tragic consequences, like the expulsion of 1 million people from not only from Karabakh, but from the 7 surrounding areas occupied by the Armenians. So in that occasion, I guess the most complete ethnic cleansing of 20th century was realized. You know, ethnic cleansing in Bosnia, in Kosovo, was incomplete. Minorities or hostile population remained, at least partially. But in that case, and this is what brought the attention of Azerbaijan history to me, was the fact that all the Azerbaijani population from the 7 districts in Nagorno-Karabakh fled to Baku or to other parts of the countries. All the population. So this is almost impossible to obtain such a result. So the most complete and radical ethnic cleansing I ever heard of. So it was incredible what happened. For a war made of symbols, like Shusha. Shusha is considered the home, the seat, the birthplace of the Azerbaijani culture. Was a small city as compared to European or Asian standards. It's a very ancient. It's both a very ancient city because everything in Shusha speaks Middle Age, a Middle Age style. Say something to us about Middle Age, or we figure in Shusha, we figure the ancient East of caravans, of khans, of amants or fortresses, etc. But the city was founded quite recently, in late 18th century. So Shusha was, during his history, was always suspended between modernity and antiquity. Seems ancient because it's a city up on a mountain, surrounded by nothing, so encircled by a wall, so like Siena, more or less. It reminded me of Siena, the famous Tuscany city. But in that city, many of the most important figures of Azerbaijani culture were born, raised, and worked. People like the first composer of the Azerbaijani opera. People like the poet Vagif, who wasn't born there but went there for being visited, or the co-founder of the first Mullah Nasradan, the first satirical newspaper of the Muslim East. The co-founder and wife of the founder was born in Shusha, or Bubur, the famous tenor. So musicians, architects, writers, composers, poets, painters. So a cradle of culture and humanities. And when we say culture, we say an advancement, not a sheer reproduction of cultural schemes, but I'd say more an advancement towards contamination with Western models. This is what happened with the opera, with satirical writing, with singing, etc., etc. So when models contaminate and melt, we have a cultural advancement. And Shusha was home to this place. So yes, Azerbaijan is telling a story of victory, but it is true. Why shouldn't be Azerbaijan allowed to raise its story of victory? Western states did after World War II, when defeated the Germans, when the Americans and the Britons defeated the Germans. They celebrated their victories. They built their victory museums. They did their victory parades any year. The Russians still do the victory parade on May 8th. It's a national celebration. We Italians celebrate the April 25, which is a victory towards Germans and Nazis and fascists. So why shouldn't be Azerbaijan allowed to celebrate its own victory? So this is a blatant case of double standards. So what we allow for ourselves, do not allow for others. The others should be always confined to norms and standards we set up. So it's a form of cultural colonialism to me. So there have been many criticisms for Azerbaijan when the Victory Museum opened, but any Western state, I visited many times Washington D.C. He said it has its own World War II museum and memorial. Not to mention the Imperial Museum in London. Even us, we Italians, in our military museum have guns taken from the Austrians during World War I. So Azerbaijan is doing the same thing because people celebrate victory and they build their own narratives. It's now the real challenge is reconstruction, and the real challenge is what will happen from 4 years from now. Because in 5 years, the agreement, the trilateral agreement, will be expired. So the final status is not discussed. I hope that a peace treaty will be signed between Armenia and Azerbaijan, in which, on one side, Armenia quits Karabakh or Artsakh, as to say, forever, recognizing that territory as integral part of Azerbaijan. And the other side, Azerbaijan will be willing to use its own prosperity for the sake of the whole region, helping Armenians to get out of economic backwardness and open the whole region to connectivity in Turkey and Russia. So I think that a multilateral approach in which the resources of prosperity were directed to regional prosperity, but the precondition should be the recognition by the Armenians that Karabakh is Azerbaijan, because Karabakh is Azerbaijan. I want to say one final thing about this. Why is Karabakh Azerbaijan? Are you biased? Someone asked me, are you pro-Azerbaijan? Your friends are Azerbaijan, etc. You see, we are here from, usually Armenians say, we are here from thousands and thousands of years. Okay, I am an historian as background. Now I'm researcher in sociology, not professor, researcher. But my background is historical. So history, against my profession, against my profession, I want to say the history doesn't count here. I mean that the historical analysis of the region of Karabakh show that this region was neither fully Armenian nor fully Azerbaijani. It has always been a mixed territories. Even the name itself is a mixed invention, deriving from 2 different languages, 3 different languages if we include the Arctic mountain, Nagorno. So, in all Eastern Europe and all Russian-influenced world, it's impossible to draw the borders of a state according to ethnic homogeneous lines. All states have a differentiated composition of ethnic groups within. So there is huge minority parts. In Western Europe is different. In Western Europe, things are very, ethnic presence is much more compact. Let's say compact and clearly visible rather than Eastern Europe. This is especially true for Karabakh. So Armenia and Azerbaijan existed only between 1918 and 1920, and then after 1991. So claiming for independence of the region or reunification of Armenia has no basis. Which is the only basis? Is the international law. When Soviet Union collapsed, all 15 Soviet republics agreed to a simple and guiding concept. The borders of Soviet Union, the internal borders of Soviet Union should be recognized mutually as borders of the new 15 internationally recognized states. So 15 republics, Soviet republics, for 15 new states. And when this principle was violated, like in Abkhazia, Ossetia, Transnistria, Ukraine, Crimea, Eastern Ukraine, and Nagorno-Karabakh, we had war. So the core, the main reason, the rationale of wars in post-Soviet space is the violation, is the non-compliance of this simple principle. 15 Soviet Republic, 15 states recognized in these borders. And Nagorno-Karabakh was part of the Soviet Republic of Azerbaijan. It's not true that Stalin gave Nagorno-Karabakh to Azerbaijan. Nagorno-Karabakh was already part of Azerbaijan in 1918, 1920, and before that was a Khanate, an Islamic polity in 18th century. Mm-hmm. So there is no tearing Nagorno-Karabakh apart from, this is a lie. But what counts is what was established in 1991. A simple, effective, acceptable principle of territorial integrity, for which 15 republics, 15 states, and intangible borders. Because the intangibility of the borders is a principle also for us Westerners. In 1975, the Cold War basically ended. Not in 1991, 1975, when Western world and Eastern world, Soviet Union and United States and Western Europe mutually recognized their own borders. The borders drawn after 1945. This is when Cold War started to end. It was a long process, it would last 15 years, and then after that, Soviet Union collapsed. But the beginning of freedom, the beginning of the spreading of democracy, was based on the mutual recognition of borders and territorial integrity, so that peace and democracy could be built upon. That's all I want to say.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for this insightful interview.
My pleasure to have offered you some interesting insights, and I hope to collaborate with your center more often in the next future. It will be an
honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.